Hi, you're watching my channel, Clodbuster. So I'm at my shop. I'm kind of at a standstill on all my projects right now. Parts are kind of hard to get with everything that's going on. And I'd like to get some more work done on the 5th scale Clodbuster, but the problem is I got to get some machine work done on it. And normally my friend's boss lets me use his machine shop, but he's not letting anybody in right now because of the virus. Not that he has it, well, the corona one anyway, but he's just being extra cautious, and I understand. So I figured I'd start a new RC project. Let's take a look. So right here is the A scale version of my full-size monster truck chassis. So I measured every piece and part and bend on the full-size truck, and I copied it in A scale. And then I made this chassis table so that each one is identical. So right here, all these blocks hold all the tubes in place while I weld them and keep them at the proper angle. And anywhere you see a dowel pin, that's where a bend goes. It's very important whenever you're building a chassis to do it on a table like this. That way they're all exact. So right there, if you lay this one on top, it's exactly the same. And if you take a look at the tubes on the full-size truck, and then look at the one I made, you can see the tubes match exactly. So what I do first is I put it in the jig, tack weld it with a MIG welder, and then I go back and TIG weld it later. And for welders, there's two that I use. The one on the left is a Miller 252 MIG welder. The one on the right is a Miller Synchro-Wave TIG welder. Miller's always been my favorite, not that the others are bad, that's just what I've always liked the best. Chassis is made out of chromoly. I'm not a big fan of aluminum just because it's relatively weak. But if I was building this to be like a race truck, I don't know, maybe I'll make some aluminum ones. I could easily do that. But I'm more making this for scale realism, not like a speed machine. And as far as components, so for the transmission, I'll be using a low-C Super Rock Ray. It's a real durable metal gear transmission, and this big motor bolts right up to it. Only problem is if you take a look, for the front there's a dog bone. In the rear, it's got a hole right there to put a regular drive shaft in. So, luckily I have two transmissions. So I took the other one apart, and I took the differential apart, and it's real easy. So that's the one for the dog bone, that's the one for the regular drive shaft. If you look, the ends are the same. So I could just put this one in this transmission, in that differential, and it's good to go. I'm still not quite sure what I want to do for axles. I've actually figured out a really easy way to turn a Super Rock Ray rear axle into a steer axle, so that's one option. Problem is it's way too wide, so I don't know, I'll still figure that one out. But for now, let's get to work on finishing the cage. And I got a few more monster truck parts in, so I'll show you those real quick. You can see the rear sway bar I got back from powder coat. It's like a dark gunmetal gray. Front sway bar's in. Same thing, gunmetal gray powder coat. It looks a little bit different than the back one. That's just because this one mounts behind the axle and the chassis, and those are the right length arms. And one thing to note about sway bars, this will apply to a full-size truck or an RC, doesn't matter. The higher up you mount the bar in the chassis, the better it'll work. And that's because, so where the 4-link bars connect to the chassis, it's kind of like the pivot point of the whole chassis. So the higher up you can mount the sway bar, the more leverage it's going to have on the chassis to keep stable, and that's why higher up is better. So also the steering cylinders came in, two for the front, two for the rear. Right here is the return to center for the rear steer. So what that does, as soon as you let off the switch for the rear steer, it centers itself. And all the stuff came from Race Source. I do a lot of business with him. He does awesome work, and he's got a bunch more stuff on the way, so I'll be doing another video of this stuff soon. So take care, thanks for watching, like and subscribe.